Whenever we talk about horror movie villains, we often talk about Pennywise, Freddy Krueger, Hannibal Lecter, Ghostface, and many others, and often we miss out on this underrated horror villain from the Omen franchise who gave us the chills even when he was a kid. Damien Thorn, the villain of the Omen movie franchise, was scary along with creepy and committed some extremely horrible deeds until he seemingly died. In today's video, we will discuss the origins of this forgotten horror villain from the Omen movie franchise who will send shivers down your spine, so be prepared. Before we get started with the video, we have a small request for you. If you like our content, please subscribe to us and like this video. It might be just a simple click for you, but it means a lot to us. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's get started. Who is Damien Thorn? Damien Thorn is the son of Satan who was destined to become Antichrist and destroy the world so that it would become suitable for the arrival of Satan himself. He was also the main protagonist of the Omen movie series, which explores the prophecy in the Bible that Satan's son would be born with a 666 mark engraved on his body. The prophecy also said that he would be born into an influential person of politics and would use politics as a weapon to bring down human society as we know it, and would bring apocalypse on the people of Earth. Damien's childhood. Damien was born in 1976 in a hospital in Italy on the 6th day of the 6th month of the 6th year and had a 666 mark engraved on his head. He was born from a jackal and was offered for adoption to Mr. Robert, who had lost his stillborn son. Mr. Robert accepted this child without any question and lied to his wife, Mrs. Catherine, and he was their own son. Mr. Robert was a U.S. ambassador in Great Britain, having connections with even the president himself. For the first 5 years of Damien's life, he was a normal kid. But on his 5th day, Satan himself visited him in the form of a hellhound and hypnotized Damien's nanny into committing suicide so that he could replace her with a demon from hell named Mrs. Baylock and protect Damien from any dangers in the future. Father Brennan, who was present during Damien's birthday, witnessed all of this and tried to warn Mr. Robert about Damien being the Antichrist and the son of Satan. Mr. Robert denied Brennan's claims and shooed him away. Just about then, Father Brennan was killed in a mysterious accident while entering the church. When Mr. Robert read about this in a newspaper, he was perplexed but didn't give it much attention. In a few days, when they decided to attend the marriage and were around the church premises, Damien started freaking out. This was strange because Damien had never been sick or behaved erratically throughout his life. Right about then, Mrs. Catherine became pregnant again and started noticing the changed behavior of Damien and complained to Mr. Robert about the same, but Mr. Robert didn't pay any attention to this. After a few days, when Catherine was cleaning the curtains on the balcony, Damien hit her with his tricycle and seemingly killed her, but it was revealed that Mrs. Catherine wasn't dead. Instead, her unborn baby died in the accident. When Mr. Robert met her, she started complaining about Damien's weird behavior and became scared to visit him again. This made Mr. Robert extremely suspicious, and then he met a photographer named Keith Jennings who shared photographs of the victims before they died in a strange mark near their heads before an unknown entity killed them. So Mr. Robert and Keith went to Italy to investigate the father who handed him the baby Damien. They asked the father about the mother of Damien and he pointed them to a cemetery. Upon investigation, it was revealed that Damien was indeed a jackal's child, and Mr. Robert also found his own child's skeleton, which had a mark on its skull indicating it had been killed after birth. This made Mr. Robert extremely sad, but a herd of hellhounds started attacking them and they retreated to a hotel where Mr. Robert asked Catherine to fly to England. After Catherine put down the call, she was killed by none other than Mrs. Baylock. In the morning, when Mr. Robert heard this news, he was devastated and decided to end the terror of Damien. He visits Israel with Keith and meets an exorcist named Bugenhagen, who hands them 7 daggers that can kill the Antichrist. Robert takes the daggers, but later refuses to kill a kid and throws the daggers away. Keith retrieves them and says he'll do it himself, but gets mysteriously murdered by a runaway truck. This mysterious death prompts Mr. Robert to take daggers with him. Later that night, Mr. Robert checks for the 666 mark on Damien, and when he sees it, he decides to kill this little devil, but is stopped by the hellhound and Mrs. Baylock. Robert locks the hellhound in the basement and kills Mrs. Baylock in a confrontation. Then he takes Damien with him to the church to subdue his powers, but just as he is about to stab the son of Satan, he is shot by the police who think Mr. Robert has gone insane. At the end of the movie, we see a double burial of Mr. Robert and Mrs. Catherine and Damien in the care of the president, implying Damien is going to set off his evil plans. The discovery of powers. In the second Omen movie, Damien, Omen 2, it is revealed that Damien was in the president's care until he is handed over to his uncle, Richard Thorn. The movie starts 7 years later and Damien has turned 12, but to our surprise, Damien doesn't know anything about his powers or him being the Antichrist. He believes that he is just a normal kid living a normal life. He is also very fond of Mark, the son of Uncle Richard and Aunt Anne. Damien and Mark then go to military school where Damien shows off his powers in front of an instructor by answering all of the history questions. This is when he is pulled aside by another instructor who is a Satanist and asks him to keep a low profile because this is not the right time to show his powers. Confused by this, Damien asks the instructor what powers he is talking about. The instructor asks him to read the Revelations because they talk about the near future and Damien's role in it. When Damien reads it, he's shocked to find out that he's the Antichrist and doesn't believe it at first, but then slowly starts accepting his destiny. Around the same time, Mark starts hearing rumors about Damien being the Antichrist and confronts him about this. Damien accepts that he is the Antichrist and asks Mark to join him, but Mark doesn't want to join hands with evil, and Damien has to reluctantly kill Mark even though he is the only person Damien has ever cared for. He has to kill him to fulfill his destiny. Richard starts doubting Damien about this incident and decides to kill him after confirming that he is the Antichrist. Instead, he is killed by Aunt Anne, who reveals that she is a Satanist herself. On watching this, Damien burns the family's museum and kills Aunt Anne in the process, again coming out as the sole survivor of another tragedy. The evil schemes. In the third movie of the Omen series, it is revealed that Damien has grown up and is now 32 years of age. He has been appointed as the U.S. ambassador to Great Britain like his late father and is the sole owner of Thorn Industries. Being an adult, Damien has already started his evil plans and has become a cult leader and managed to form an army of Satanists called the Disciple of Watch. He also starts becoming romantically involved with a widow journalist and makes her son Peter one of his disciples. He starts using his disciples for all of his evil schemes, but one day he has the vision that Jesus will be reborn, which will disrupt his rise to power. Scared by this, he orders the Disciple of Watch to slaughter every born child born on the 24th of March. This leads to a great tragedy in England, and within a week, 31 boy children are killed mysteriously. Harvey Dean, who is a close disciple of Damien, realizes that his son is also born on 24th of March, but he decides to hide this fact from Damien and decides not to kill his child. Around the same time, Father DiCarlo forms a group of priests and retrieves the 7 daggers that can kill the Antichrist, but Damien kills off all the priests until Father DiCarlo is the last survivor, so he decides to visit Kate and reveal the real identity of Damien. Kate is initially reluctant, but Father DiCarlo provides all the proof that he has to Kate and leaves the premises. Later that night, Kate becomes intimate with Damien and discovers the 666 mark on his forehead and becomes sure that Damien is the son of Satan. Then Kate and Father DiCarlo make plans to kill Damien, but their plan backfires when Damien uses Peter as a shield and Peter meets his demise at the hands of Father DiCarlo. The end of Damien Thorn. Devastated by the death of Peter, Kate becomes determined to kill Damien. Damien then kills Father DiCarlo and calls out Jesus by the name of Nazarene, asking him to come out to fight him. Around the same time, Kate stabs Damien with a dagger, and Damien goes to a courtyard and says his last words, "Nazarene, you have won nothing." This is where Damien meets his demise, but the story doesn't end here. In the lesser-known Omen 4, it is revealed that Damien has a daughter called Delia. When Delia's adopted mother, Karen, was pregnant with her child, a satanic doctor replaced Karen's embryo with the embryo that Delia carried, which was revealed to be of her twin brother. They infused that embryo with the DNA of Damien Thorn. When the child was born, he was named Alexander. When Karen finds the truth about Alex, she kills the satanic doctor and goes to her home to kill Alex. Unable to kill her own child, Karen decides to kill herself. At her funeral, it is revealed that Delia is the protector of Alex, the new Antichrist, who is destined to bring destruction to the world and lead the descent of Satan on earth. This is where the movie comes to an end. Marvelous verdict. In 2016, a TV series came out which shared the story of Damien Thorn from a different perspective. It didn't portray Damien as the all-knowing cunning villain, but as a more human version of the character who is struggling with the fact that he's the Antichrist and the son of Satan. This series shows the internal struggles of Damien Thorn upon realizing his real identity. Although the show was watchable, what we would have been more interested in watching was the story of what happened to Alexander after the end of Omen 4. It was clear from the ending that Alexander is Damien Thorn, who was reborn to fulfill his prophecy. It would have been more interesting to see his adventures and how far he'd go to protect his identity as the Antichrist and what heinous deeds he would have committed to defeat the Christ. Although we haven't gotten a sequel to Omen 4, we think it's about time we get one because we are all dying to know what happened with Alexander. But this time the movie needs to have excellent writing just like Omen 1, because Omen 2 and 3 failed compared to Omen 1 in giving creepy vibes similar to the first movie, and everyone almost ignored Omen 4, so very few people know that Damien Thorn isn't really dead. With that being said, if you liked our content, like and subscribe if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.